This Mac Mini is the cheapest computer in Apple's lineup as of recording this video in December 2023. 999 Australian dollars fetches you the baseline M2 chip, 8GB of RAM, and 250GB of storage. At first glance, it seems like pretty good value, especially when you consider the industry-leading performance of the M2 chip. But when you inevitably realise that you need more than 8GB of RAM and 250GB of storage, the price skyrockets to 1,599 Australian dollars. And what originally seemed like a good deal now seems like a luxury. This is the 2018 Mac Mini, currently being flogged in the Apple refurbished store for an insultingly high 1,489 Australian dollars. This is the mid-spec 3GHz i5 model, featuring Intel HD 630 graphics, 8GB of RAM, and 500GB of storage. Skimming over what can only be described as predatory and desperate pricing on the refurbished 2018 model, especially when you consider the price of the well-spec'd M2 Mac Mini, this leads me to wonder, will I ever see enough value in a modern Apple computer to ever buy one again? My issue is that I love macOS. I love the exclusive apps like Logic Pro, Pixelmator, and Final Cut. I also hate Windows with a burning passion, and Linux, while rock solid, lacks compatibility with many creative apps that just don't have good alternatives. But I can't justify dropping 1.5k on a machine that forces you to spend $300 on a memory upgrade and a further $300 on a storage upgrade. So what's the answer? I can't believe I'm saying this in what is practically 2024, but Hackintosh. You heard correctly. Join me as I build a budget Hackintosh, which I plan to use as a daily driver for as long as I possibly can. This is my new Dell Precision 3630. I bought it on eBay for 350 Australian dollars, shipped. It comes with an i7-8700, which is an 8th gen chip, and a whopping 32GB of RAM. The reason it was so cheap is because there's no GPU and no storage. Thankfully, I have a spare 500GB M.2 SSD, and this RX 570 that I was originally attempting to use in my 3.1 Mac Pro. After installing these parts, we have a full system, and brace yourself, we're gonna install Windows 10. I know, I said I hate Windows, but this is a necessary evil. We need an operating system on here to configure OpenCore, which is what will allow me to run macOS on this machine. And well, Windows is probably the easiest. The process of configuring and building OpenCore is actually quite well documented. It's also very bespoke, so I won't be going through a step-by-step guide. In a gross oversimplification, you've got to figure out the exact hardware your machine has and build an installer specifically for it. This process takes time and it's worth doing slowly with a cup of coffee. Once we've configured OpenCore and copied all of the necessary files to the USB stick, we're ready to shut down the machine and see if it all worked. Before attempting to install macOS, I went into this machine's BIOS and configured it according to the recommended settings in the OpenCore guide. Things like disabling virtualization, making sure the SATA mode is ACHI, and making sure secure boot is disabled. And now's the moment of truth. We can attempt to boot from the USB. The only quirk I had while booting from this USB was having to press space to view the installer option. This is a huge relief. The USB works, now it's basically a normal macOS install. So the installation was a success, and we can now begin to set up the machine. It's always a relief when you get to this point, because I feel like things can just go wrong at any stage with a Hackintosh. And here we are on the desktop. If I go to About This Mac and System Report, we can see that mostly everything is working. It detects my RX 570, the RAM configuration it's reporting is correct, the card reader doesn't work, which is a bit annoying, neither does the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, but I'm not going to bother fixing those at the moment because I barely use Bluetooth and this machine's going to be plugged into Ethernet the whole time. Just for fun, I did a benchmark. Here you can see it scored 1,561 for single core, 6,912 for multi-core. That puts the CPU performance of this machine between the 2018 and 2020 M1 Mac Mini. and as you can see here, doing a Blackmagic disk speed test, performance is pretty good. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I've managed to build a pretty cheap Hackintosh that pretty much demolishes the 2018 Mac Mini, and as far as I'm concerned, outperforms the M2 Mac Mini in multiple key areas. This thing has 2 SATA bays, an M.2 slot which you can swap out to a different drive at will. It has 4 RAM slots, each of which can accept a 32GB module, meaning this machine's maximum capacity is 128GB. I've had a look at RAM prices, and it looks like you can pick up 32GB in the form of 2 16 modules for only $100, which when you consider 8GB from Apple is $300, it's just a no-brainer. Of course, we also have the dedicated RX 570 graphics, which I also did a benchmark on, which you can see here. So thanks everyone for watching. I'm keen to hear your thoughts, leave them in the comments below, and I shall see you next time.